When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ledlow, and enjoy today's episode.
I was just thinking how massive, Houston, Texas is like the capital of oil and gas of the world. I hear that all the royal families from the Middle East go to Houston for meetings for whatever they're doing. The one spot in the world, Houston, Texas, is the oil and gas epicenter of the world. Kind of crazy to me, but it's always been that way for years and years.
It really has, and it's getting bigger as more, and what you're seeing, the anticipation was, and the theories were that as we get more and more, technology grows and the bottom line gets slimmer and slimmer, your margins get slimmer and slimmer. The only way to be able to do that effectively is to keep merging these smaller independent oil and gas companies and fold them into the larger ones, just so that they can kind of capitalize on the massive efficiency that the larger oil and gas companies have created. And so I think what you're going to see is that's just going to continue, right? So as these independents get bought up, they're not merging with each other, or they are, but at a much smaller scale. They're being acquired by some of the larger oil and gas companies, which, you just saw Chevron headquarters leaving California. They're now, setting up shop in Houston.
It's a big deal. That's a big move.
Yeah, it's a huge move, right? And it's
San Francisco Bay Area company.
Say again?
They're a San Francisco Bay Area based headquarter company for years and years.
Yeah, and I don't know anything anybody else knows, but my thought is, obviously, with the regulation and the kind of the anti-oil sentiment in that area, that moving to Texas was a no-brainer for them in the long run. So,
right.
But ultimately, all we're going to see is a greater concentration of oil and gas moving into Houston, and it's more like the smaller independents that might be based in Fort Worth, might be based in Midland, Odessa, might be based in other parts of South Texas, are just going to basically be acquired by some of the big ones, and that manpower, that workforce that's not in the field, but the corporate workforce is all going to still continue to slide into Houston.
Yeah, it blew me away at how big of a deal that Permian Basin. Yeah, that basin out there. That's what, Lubbock out there in that whole area. The west side of it.
It's mainly Midland, Odessa is kind of the concentration, the metropolitan hubs of the Permian.
Okay, Permian. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the bulk of the oil in Texas is right there, isn't it?
So from a volume standpoint, yes. There are wells and pads, of course, all over South Texas, East Texas, and of course West Texas. I was even surprised. I had to take my car into the shop the other day just for it's a routine maintenance, and I was shocked to see when you go to a satellite imagery of right around DFW Airport, there are pump jacks and pads around DFW, the DFW Airport. I was shocked. I had no idea. They're all pretty well camouflaged, behind, like a brush layers and such. You can't really see it through the roadways, but
wow.
Right there, I was pretty surprised to see. So, you have them everywhere, but the main concentration and kind of the real kind of crown jewel of crude for Texas is the Permian, or the United States, quite frankly, is Permian Basin.
So Texas has the most oil of anywhere in the United States is Texas.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
That's wild.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on the big pipeline that they're going to build before Trump left office, and then I think Biden killed it due to environmental issues? What was that? The Keystone Pipeline.
The Keystone Pipeline.
Now that was bringing the crude down from Canada, right? And processing it in
Correct.
Houston? Is that what that was?
It didn't really affect. It didn't affect us. Where we were just in a way we were an upstream builder, or an oil and gas exploration company. So it didn't really affect our operations per se. But I just don't, honestly, I don't know enough about the pipeline itself. I mean, it sounded like it was a no-brainer that if you're going to have a mechanism to effectively and efficiently move oil from point A to point B without having to utilize trains, planes, and automobiles to get it there, with minimum infringement on basically movement or way of life, it makes sense. But again, that's me not being educated enough to say with finality. Certainly something, though. I mean, I don't know. I had heard that the measure, how it was killed, it's whether or not it's going to be able to be revived is something I just don't know if it's if it's viable from a monetary standpoint. I hope whatever the most efficient method that there is to get that that oil from point A to point B, we're gonna exercise that. We'll see.
Yeah, I really see with the migration to Texas, and because I've been out there 4 months, just all the growth I see happening is like, this is insane. And I'm like, first thing that comes to my mind, where's the water going to come from to support all these humans coming to move to Texas from all over the country? And I'm like, well, they got to start making some more man-made lakes and filling them up. But it's just a huge growth. I don't see it slowing down for another 10 years. I just don't see it slowing down.
No, I think again, we're kind of at the epicenter of commerce. Where commerce wants to rest for the United States right now, with a lot of the the regulations and the tax burdens that are happening in some of the other what generally or traditionally were kind of the high production states. Now, with a little bit more freedom, able to come in here and recognize some of the tax benefits of Texas. I think it's just going to continue.
And real estate's lost its mind. It's like big around shopping for property. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, tip them an acre for $800,000. I'm like, whoa, this is nuts.
Yeah, and of course the property taxes here. There is no state income tax in Texas, but you really do need to study what you will be paying on your house in property tax, because it's pretty substantial. I'll just say that. And in a lot of the areas where I know you're looking, you're gonna pay a lot in property tax. So they get you one way or another. They'll get you. The freedom of not having a state income tax is actually pretty nice. Yeah,
it is.
For sure.
Got to be the bonus. What do you think of the fastest growing city in Texas right now? Would you think? It sounds like Fort Worth overgrew Austin recently in some of the stuff I've seen.
Is there? So you're talking of the larger metropolitans, because I thought Frisco had it, or Plano, one of the two had it for a while, didn't they? Just that they were growing significantly, and then I know I had heard, and again, I don't know how they break this down with the different sizes of metropolitan areas, but that Midland Odessa was massively growing as well. I just don't, again, the last I heard was like the Frisco Plano area of, North DFW was the fastest growing, but, that might be on a different scale than the Fort Worth / Austin / Dallas, San Antonio size. I don't know, but I mean, from the growth. I've been here now in Texas for almost 11 years, and I can tell you that, I mean, just in some of these areas that just were not far from me here, and where I live, used to be remote, now just overflowing with commerce and with businesses and properties. It's pretty incredible. And like you said, there doesn't appear to be any signs of slowing down.
Yeah. I mean, Wall Street's the exchange is going down there now. There's going to open up their own exchange down in Dallas. I'm like, what the heck? That's insanity.
Wow. Yeah. And then, of course, some of the areas, data centers are popping up in now the kind of the outer fringe area, not fringe in a negative way, but, the outer areas of the Metroplex. But now they're being built all around like it used to be the outer kind of rim of the Metroplex. And now they're being surrounded by homes and other businesses. It's crazy.
And I did hear through somebody, I think I was on a flight and I overheard somebody say that some of the companies in Vegas were in talk with the state of Texas about maybe doing some stuff with casinos and legalizing casinos in Texas. So there's conversations of that going on too. So I think you're just going to see some of that Nevada business probably hit Texas business as well. So it's like, I tell people, it's kind of like going to Frisco, Plano. It's kind of like the way they're developing and building. It's almost like Abu Dhabi, Dubai for the United States. But maybe I'm off. I hope not. I get advice and stuff before it blows up.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, we priced out on the market. I'll have to get an RV somewhere and call it home.
You and cousin Eddie, right, from vacation.
In the back of the pond, fishing for some bass and cowboy boots and my cowboy hat on, and I got the old filly and the horse all saddled up.
All right, you're set, man. You're set.
One thing that blew my mind too was I was looking around for property, and the guy, all the oil guys that I know down there said, make sure if you get property, get them with mineral rights. And then I find out that's almost impossible to do in Texas.
Yeah, and it's funny because I moved from Virginia to Tucson, and then from Tucson here to to the DFW area. So I never heard of the mineral rights exceptions on your contract, and so it's just something that learned on it. It's pretty crazy, and you think, well, okay, that'll never really affect me. But then again, I do not live very far from DFW, and you have oil, you have wells there, so you just never know what you're either signing on for or signing away.
Yeah, I was talking to a buddy of mine. His dad was a big builder in the DFW area. He's the heir of $100 million, I think, in assets what he owns. And he was talking about me setting up a camera system in his house there in South of Fort Worth. And he said, make sure you get mineral rights, otherwise it's not worth buying. I'm like, oh, okay, did not know that. Make sure if you get 10 acres, you get agriculture write-off rights or something, you get some cows on there. All these tricks that the old timers know to do, not to pay property taxes. All right, whoa, this is a whole different world here in Texas.
Yeah. Get your homestead exemption. Get your try to hold on your mineral rights if possible. If possible, you may not. I mean, just
crazy.
The ag exception for I think you have to have at least 5 acres.
5 acres. Yep.
To be able to get. I think that's but I might be wrong on that. You're getting some good advice.
They said, that's why the ranchers are ranchers and they don't pay taxes. So I'm like, oh, that's how this works in Texas. Okay, I'm getting the game now. From the old multimillionaires, give me some free advice. And here I am from the West Coast. I don't know nothing about Texas. So like, my dad was raised there, but family's all from there. But I'm like, the whole new world.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're sure glad to have you down here. We'll just have to keep you down here because you're spending more time in Oregon again now.
Hey, I was getting mountain sick. I was like, where's my mountain? Where's my scenery? And I'm like, I can't handle this anymore. I got to go back to Oregon. And so enjoying the snow, throwing snowballs and watching the dog run through the snow. I'm like, okay, this is home. Like, okay, I'm not going to make any business here in Southern Oregon. So I'm going to head back out there in about 2 weeks. You got the ONTIC Summit. So shout out to Fred Burton, Chuck Randolph, and Lucas. We're going to be there for the ONTIC Summit. They know how to throw a party. I'll tell you guys that. The party with the ONTIC is like off the charts. It's like Vegas times 10, but they just know how to have a good time and really connect to people and have their parties are off the chart. So that's all I'll say about that.
Well, more importantly, they put out a good product. I mean, the intelligence and the again the threat intelligence and some of the geopolitical knowledge that their cadre of employees have is pretty impressive across the spectrum. So always, Fred Burton is a genius on this stuff. And if he says something, it would do you well to listen. It's very, very advisable to listen to what he has to say.
Yeah, we just had him on a podcast 2 weeks ago for an hour and a half.
Oh, really?
Oh, man. He dropped some gold nuggets.
Yeah, I bet he did.
And just to kind of promote the Olympic Summit. And then we got, then after that, we had the TEP with Mike Gonzalez down in San Antonio after that. So it's going to be a busy week and a half down there, 1st of March.
Great.
And then I'll be back in the area. Then you and I are going to be doing a podcast in studio with your friend, oil gas buddy. I'm looking forward to that podcast.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. Get a unique perspective too. Again, that's kind of in East Texas and beyond in Permian. We're going to kind of hit all the Texas corners, and then again, with him going a little bit beyond, and he's got a very interesting story as well. So I look forward to that for sure. So yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else that we had talked about discussing that we haven't hit, but trying to think just from I will say that one of the points that I kind of hit on early and wanted to kind of circle back on was the transition from law enforcement over into corporate security is certainly there are so many items that are similar that do transcend across very very seamlessly, and then there are others and that require a little bit more time than what we're used to on the government side. And I think one of the things that I found to be very very helpful was once you kind of get into your seat and your role is to really understand. You get your bearings, you understand the environment. I understand exactly where you are and what you're doing before you try to affect any change that's not, from a perspective of danger, anything that's critical, you just kind of hold off on and understand. And most importantly, government has a unique culture in and of itself. Coming out, understanding the culture, I think, is so important. Understanding the culture will really guide how you work either within your department or run your department, and it's pretty amazing to see where things can go wrong if you don't fit within that culture. You could have the greatest ideas ever, but your presentation will just never resonate, and you'll never get that off the ground. So pretty important to really kind of understand the culture and then how you build your credibility within your enterprise so that you can actually affect change.
Good advice. Where do you see in the next new administration, where do you see executive protection? Where do you see protective intelligence? And how do you see the shift? I see a lot of shifts taking place, a lot of changes happening right now in the last few months. I talked to Renee Stringer quite often, and she got to give me a pulse on. She said, "There's not much going on for executive protection right now. It's just dead." And I'm
obviously, when Brian Thompson was assassinated a couple months ago, that brought the vulnerability of CEOs and senior leadership kind of into the spotlight. Yeah. And I hope it's not a fleeting deal, right? Which you see always in security is, you have an incident that creates some sort of a ripple, and knee-jerk reaction is you throw a lot of money on that, and then enter your number 10 months down the road, 5 months down the road, everything is quiet, and you go, wow, executive protection is pretty expensive. Let's start cutting back on that. And now, then it's just, it's always knee jerk, and it's the kind of, security always kind of falls into that bucket. But, to me, I always felt that travel security and executive protection and of course, threat intelligence that goes, as a package with both of those. Yeah. You can't do either well without threat intelligence. Have always been really underappreciated and, in security. So, you have a security department, and And, they look at the normal, the gates, the guards, the cameras, the access control.
Mm-hmm.
That's great when you're there. But hey, what about, if you're a successful company and you have people on the move, obviously you're going to be traveling quite a bit and you're sending them into places, that don't always have the best, protection for them. I mean, even domestically, right? So you having a travel security program, and then if you're, from an executive leadership standpoint, you obviously need to protect them. So it's one of those where, again, understanding. I think it's critically important to answer your question, and always underappreciated, but critically important. And I think, what you're seeing now, this shift, this awareness, at least, is there. How it's capitalized upon for the long term is going to be interesting, because I really would hate to see it just be, again, a fleeting deal. Everybody has that reaction. All right, now your CEO and your EVPs are going to travel everywhere with a protective detail, and then obviously that's going to be cost prohibitive after a while. And if nothing goes wrong, then they're going to want to scale that back. Finding a competent answer to that fits, budget long term is going to be the missing piece there. And so, out of curiosity, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Being that you are knee deep in the EP game, so how do you feel that you're going to be able to continue to keep EP relevant and provide long term, because it is, it is a cost, right? So
you gotta be able to have a conversation with a C-suite. You have to educate them, and you gotta explain to them what they don't know. Because there's like protection, unless you're in our circle. You talk to general counsel, CFO, they don't even know what that word means. It's not in their vocabulary in business. And if you look at the budget, if you look at a line item budget, it's below janitorial services. That's how highly they think of it.
Yeah.
And security services.
And I think they have the wrong impression, right? What they think is a secret service detail. Right?
Absolutely.
So you have something get out, and you have, 4 or 5 or 6 people there with a huge advanced detail, and it doesn't have to be there. I mean, you scale it obviously to the needs and the threats. And
I think they find it's an infringement on their privacy to live their life, and they think it's almost like they feel violated just to have a team, especially if they come from a culture that's anti-gun culture policy with their corporation, and they go, well, we don't want a bunch of retired police officers working for us. We're tech. We just don't like that shit. And then you have to go in there and educate them on how you can make this a profit for them versus a cost. And I think they get hung up on cost.
Or just obviously understanding the risk. I mean, yes, not the risk necessarily of every day, but what happens if you, the CEO, what happens to what does the board think of you walking around unprotected? What are the shareholders? The expectation is that that they're going to be able to attend these meetings, right? I mean, the CEO should be able to attend the meetings without being shot or injured. So I mean, there is the other side of the risk is not necessarily how much it costs, but what if you are no longer here to run this company? What is the risk to the shareholders? I mean, the bottom line is that CEO, everybody's in the business to make money. And without you here, that's going to be seriously interfered with. I think the other interesting piece of that is I was blessed to work for 2 very, very humble CEOs. And they're like, man, nobody knows who I am. I could board any plane at any time because nobody knows who I am. It's cool. I don't need this. And it's almost the opposite. They're embarrassed of the spectacle, or what they're anticipating ideas. Of a spectacle. So it's not an invasion of their privacy. It's just like, I don't want to make a scene. And
publicity.
The reality is anybody who wanted to affect oil and gas in Texas knew exactly who our CEOs were, and if they wanted to create a negative impact, man, it was so yeah. I mean, day to day, maybe nobody knows who you are, but those aren't the people we're worried about. And oil and gas, regardless of where you are, and I'm just speaking from my experience, but I mean, you could apply this to really any industry. Oil and gas is a hot button topic, right? So
it is.
People are very emotional about oil and gas, or some people are extremely emotional about it. I mean, heck, we just had a couple of years ago, there was a film that came out called How to Blow Up a Pipeline.
Oh, wow.
And yes, and it was incredibly concerning to us, that somebody would want to attack our infrastructure. And so we jumped through a lot of hoops. We had a lot of meetings with law enforcement at the state, local, federal level, created, alliances with other security departments just so that we could actually help each other monitor all this kind of stuff, because we had no idea. That was the unknown, right?
Yeah.
But to use the Brian Thompson assassination again, that movie came out, little fanfare, didn't really make a blip on the screen. All of these alliances, all of the concern about, hyper-critical concern about protecting critical infrastructure across the spectrum, not just, not just with us locally, kind of went away. And it's the same thing. It's like, okay, now we really need to find that happy medium of maintaining a security posture throughout the critical infrastructure, and being able to dial up or dial down depending on your local threats. And I think that's where that baseline is kind of skewed, because the baseline for executive protection in the eyes of a lot of CEOs and execs, C-suite folks, is that the baseline is 0.
Wow.
And then you ramp up when you need it, instead of having a baseline of 1 or 2 and being able to jump up when you need it. But just accepting that, there is a threat out there. And when you recognize the threat, quite often it's too late to do anything about it, unless you're prepared.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting you brought that shooting up, because when I had Chris Coleman on the podcast with Red 5, thanks for coming on to the show, Chris. And I had Brittany. She's actually cut my hair in South Lake when I was down there running around. And I sat in her chair. She had, asked me what I did. I tell you, I have a bodyguard company. I mean, that's the best way to explain it, layman's term. She goes, "Oh my gosh." So me and my clients are talking about that shooting that just happened. I'm like, "What?" And she cuts the hair of very highly successful executives in the South Lake, North Lake area, because the corporations that are down there. She goes, "Oh yeah, they're all freaking out. They're all nervous." I'm like, "Whoa, really?" And then she went down to tell me how her generation feels about all this on social media. And she said that her age group under 30, they want to create a revolution. And there's a sentiment, an ideology they believe in, that CEO was taking advantage of patients and not paying out claims. And so that shooter is looked upon as a modern day Avenger. That's what she told me. I'm like, what the heck? Really? Wow. And she said, yeah, there's new pages on Instagram and TikTok that are like creating these hit lists of all these CEOs of money they make and making profit. Well, we live in a free market capitalist society, but the young people she said the young people have given up hope. And you have to listen to the podcast, folks. It's a couple episodes in January we published the podcast. To listen to that, what she has to say. And she kind of explains it perfectly on what her generation thinks about modern day capitalism and these CEOs making the money. It's almost like there's a new ideology of people that don't think it's right for them to make that kind of money. And so now it's started shifting the culture belief in the workplace. I'm like, whoa, is this a new threat from social media? And so I'm like,
it was pretty astonishing to see how much support and reverence that the shooter got, from, again, particularly the younger generation. But I mean, regardless of how you feel about insurance companies denying claims and to what extent, and whether or not United Healthcare was the worst or middle of the road, I know what the rumors are. I haven't done my own critical thinking and research on that. But regardless, we live in a society where that should not be acceptable, period. Right. And the fact that I cannot wrap my head around how people think, are paying money to a GoFundMe page or to a legal defense fund for somebody who actually committed cold-blooded murder on the streets of New York City.
Right.
It pretty much, it was sad for me to see the amount of support that this guy was getting. And even before he was caught, it was kind of like, everybody was joking about hiding the guy and, this and that. And it's like, man, it's not funny or appropriate. And again, like, where do we live?
Yeah.
Where do we live? And, but, again, it's today. So along those lines, one of the, I'm a member of a couple CSO organizations, still, and part of the, one of them there's a CEO, there's a company that was distributing, basically, you remember, when at the early onset of the Iraq invasion, we had the cards with, all of the like the top 50 or whatever, the most wanted.
Yeah.
And they were cards. This guy was out there manufacturing CEO cards. Have you seen this or heard of this? Yeah. So it's almost like in the same vein of the most wanted, but these are CEOs of major American companies. And, this guy's marketing it out there, and it's like, man, that's the fact that people are actually supporting this thought processes, to me, is, again, crazy. Whether or not you want to have a conversation on if insurance, companies are denying too many claims, that's valid. Let's have that conversation.
Right, exactly.
And if there's a problem, if there's an institutional problem, then let's fix it. But assassinating a CSO is certainly not the way that any of us should expect to solve that problem.
And then to top that up, I was on my social media, I think the other night, and it was on a party page. I won't say which one, but it was on a party page. I'm like, what the heck? And they're calling out a certain CEO of a very well-known like a rental share property website. And basically they created a hit list because that CEO had joined forces with the Trump administration in doing something. Did it help? I think with the fire victims. And I saw that, and I know the CISO of that organization. And I'm like, should I share this with her and let her know this is what I just saw on Facebook? But basically, there's a private page on Facebook. I won't say the name, but I saw, I'm like, holy cow. They just could have hit on this person, the CEO that's supporting Trump's administration, because them helped do something with the fires or something. It was a very well-known organization, publicly traded, that does like rental properties. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
And I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. I'm like, oh, so now it's like, we can't support them. Do not use our platform to book rooms and hotels and stuff. Because now they're going along the other side, the dark side. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. But this is the stuff that's on social media. And social media is becoming a big problem. That's why protective intelligence is so critical in your programs.
Absolutely. Protective, just understanding exactly what the threat landscape is and using any legal method to achieve that is at this point, it's super, super important. And, I'm impressed at, what kind of how the companies are adapting, right? To be able to, to be able to minimize your footprint, your internet, your data footprint is big, and then the awareness of minimizing not only you, but your family's social media footprint is, being able to, the ability to make that happen now, and the companies, the technology that's able to be implemented to do that is pretty significant. And I saw a demo not too long ago on one of these companies that basically will do everything they can to delete your internet footprint completely. Wow. And man, it's significant, right? I mean, and it's pretty pricey, but I don't know how they do it, but what they do is pretty impressive. And I think that's, for a lot of companies, that's a good place to start. I mean,
brand reputation.
If you want to find out where a CEO or somebody lives, unfortunately, it's all too easy today. So at the very least, to kind of minimize that and give an education on what you should and should not be posting on social media, and what your family should and should not be posting on social media. It's pretty. I'd say is pretty poignant in today's environment.
Oh yeah, and as AI kicks in and social media gets more powerful, more problems to be had. But just to remind the audience, Rob is obviously a free agent again, and looking for a sports team to join as a first string quarterback or power forward on their team, and ATF alumni, a retired ATF board patrol guy and former CISO, but energy gas company. And if you're looking to fill a slot in your organization in Texas, feel free to reach out to them. How can people find you? Just LinkedIn, Rob?
So yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I did form I formed an LLC, which is Centerpoint Security Solutions is the name of that, and it's basically the way I did that. My idea with that was to basically work using the experience through government and through private sector, is to optimize existing security departments out there, on the large scale, revamp their organizational design, create a better strategy, messaging, engagement, scope, all that kind of stuff. And then what I found though is as we're looking at that, a lot of companies they don't have the resources to be able to actually form a security department. So if they're in that boat, but they do need, security advice, I'm able to kind of piece together some fractional security services to bolster their security presence, right? Their footprint, without actually having a true security department. And then, I could be on retainer to maintain and upkeep something like that. Or, there are some of these, smaller independent companies that actually now have reached the realization that, indeed, we do at least need a small, slim, but efficient, effective, modern security organization department. And, you can go ahead and build to scale, a security department and focusing on a lot of the things that we talked about here. So, that's the idea behind my consulting company, is kind of just, nice. Whether or not you want to optimize what you already have, create something new, or just get advice. And obviously, from there, do a little a la carte deal too, with training, risk and vulnerability assessments, incident command structure creation, business, continuity, anything like that.
Perfect. So folks, if you want to reach out to Rob on LinkedIn, and we'll put a link that in the notes on the podcast posting. We'll publish it as well. And thanks for tuning in, folks. And please subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, Mark Ledlow. We just hit 100,000 subscribers. So thanks for listening. And then the podcast platform, The Fearless Mindset, and just give us a 5-star rating to help with the algorithms. And this podcast is sponsored by Ledlow Security Group. We are headquartered now in Texas, of all places. Go figure. It was meant to be. So now we are in Texas, and I'll be getting my cowboy boots, my truck here before too long with my cat in the back of the truck. Just kidding. But we are honored to be there in Texas, where my roots are from. So originally from Texas, so going back. But thanks for supporting the show, everybody. And thanks for tuning in. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Fearless Mindset Podcast. See you soon.